Start us up. Well, hello and welcome to the season finale for the 2021-2022 Premier League and Champions League season. The season finale of You'll Never Talk Alone. I'm your friend Joseph Craven, joined as always by Alex Level, and we are here to break down the final, talk a little bit about the final match of the year, talk about a little bit more, even though we've talked about it a lot, but kind of our final wrap-up thoughts on this season as a whole, and talk a little bit about something we always like to do heading into the season: keep or sell, parentheses, or loan. And where we run through the roster and try to make our snap decisions on certain roster moves we think could be feasible or we might want to see, or something like that with our current Liverpool roster. So we're going to jump into that this episode. And we are, I think, ready and excited to talk about this and kind of reminisce a bit more on. Sure, it was a disappointing final match, but what an incredible season! A season that we will want to celebrate and want to celebrate for many more years to come. Before we jump into that, I do think it is important, and I'm a firm believer that the world doesn't need everybody to loudly vocalize about every current event all the time. I think not to say that current events are not, important to talk about all that, but I feel like there's a lot of people that shout into the abyss when it comes to social media or anything like that when talking publicly on things. But we need to go ahead and start off this episode, of course, just quickly stating our disappointment as fans in the handling of the Champions League final by UEFA, by the French sporting authorities, the people that have basically denied what has, by all the evidence that has come out, seemingly been quite true, and the disservice that they presented to the fans, to the game, to the sport itself. I think that ultimately it took away from the match. It took away from the joy of so many fans that had traveled to Paris to try to watch the match in person. You hear countless stories of fans who, due to negligence from authorities or attacks, which is an absolute shame, attacks that occurred from various parties. And you hear all these stories, and you just can't help but think about how that's just never how it's supposed to be. It's never how it's supposed to be. I think we can be very thankful that things weren't worse than they were, for sure. But I feel like we have to start things off by just stating, just public disappointment in the way the authorities have handled the situation. And I think this is an important enough issue, a relatable enough issue here on the podcast, or is related enough to what we talk about all the time, that we need to say something. So I just want to go ahead and get that out of the way. Alex, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. You can feel free to jump in here if you have anything else you want to say. But I know it's not necessarily a subject we want to harp on a huge amount, but I do want to go ahead and just get that out of the way so we could, so it's out there and kind of are discussed in the way it's handled. And we hope that there will be a push for justice and the truth to, help remedy, to help make amends, to help make, make things right a little bit more. So just wanted to say that first and foremost.
Yeah. You don't want to ever see it happen to any fan base, and it hurts that little bit more when it happens to your team's fan base, and it hurts that even more when there's historical resonance with other things that have happened to the fan base. And there were people in that crowd that were at Hillsborough, and they were there again, and I cannot imagine how terrifying that must have been. And I can't imagine how terrifying it must have been for all those kids and their families that went. Like, you see so many posts of people saying, "Oh, I surprised my son or I surprised my daughter with tickets to the final," and they get there, and that's what happens. And
Yeah.
like you said, this was supposed to be a celebration of the season, a celebration of this team, and it turned into. I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say like a fear for lives. Like there were so many awful stories, and there's also so many inspirational stories of fans in our fan base just going out of their way to make sure that everyone else was taken care of. So, I mean, it's weird in this situation to say that you're proud of your fan base in something so horrible, but I'm proud to be a Liverpool fan after seeing how our fans handled it, how the fan base has come together, and how they're not standing for what the lies that are being peddled by the people in charge. And fair play to the club too. They've done everything that they can to ensure that everyone gets heard and that they don't let the name get smeared and they don't let the fans take the blame for something that clearly was not their fault.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. It's also been, I think, important to note that, you did have some, Real fans that got caught up in things as well,
Mm-hmm.
and had to experience this sort of stuff. And you hear stories about some of the fans. I know there were two different entrances, so it wasn't like a huge amount, but some of the fans that did get caught up in some of that, you hear stories about fans sticking out for each other, regardless of what kit they were wearing at the time, and trying to keep everyone safe in the situation. So props to any of the Real fans that also got caught up in it, that either lended a hand or helped to try to keep things as peaceful and calm as it could have been. Because I mean, like I said, we could be talking about a much more dire and worse situation if cooler heads had not prevailed to the best of their ability. And I can't state enough how significant that is as well, that we're not talking about that. We are just talking about what ultimately was a day ruined, probably some things stolen, some injuries that people should hopefully be able to recover from, and not talking about, well, I mean, just an absolute disaster. So,
Mm-hmm.
Are thankful for that. But as we've said before, we're just beyond ready for this, for the for the people in charge to just take accountability. All right, let's talk about the match itself. Though it has been almost a week now, and I still cannot comprehend a single bit of this match. I cannot comprehend a single bit of this result. I cannot comprehend. I think there was a very tongue-in-cheek article posted by The Athletic talking about in an alternate universe, Real Madrid would be champions, but they're not, and talked about how, oh yeah, well, of course Sadio Mane buried this shot, just a mere 80 something seconds in. And that's what it was. It felt like the end result was out of some sort of weird alternate universe, because there was nothing in that entire match that Real Madrid did better than we did. I mean, full credit to Thibaut Courtois, who had an incredible match, who very clearly holds a grudge against the entire country of England.
Yeah.
For being slighted when he was in the Premier League. Pretty much even openly said that, which I think
he did. Yeah.
I'm like, hey, man, props to you for being honest. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But so full credit to him and for sure, but it still boggles the mind that was the end result. Alex, have you been able to make any sense of that match at all in the almost a full week since it wrapped up?
Not really. It was kind of the only concern that we had going into the match was that it was Real Madrid in the Champions League. Like, I know we were scared of Vinicius, and I know we were scared of Benzema, and we were really just scared of Real Madrid being Real Madrid in this competition.
Yep.
That's pretty much what happened. Like, they just won because they win. That was it. That was it. Just nature reset itself in some way, and that's how they made it happen. And it doesn't make much sense. They did a really good job of being in the way. But I will say that I know we'd also brought up that Ancelotti kind of typically has had Klopp's number, but yeah. I would not say that is how the game unfolded at all. You wouldn't say that they out-tacticked us, that there was some sort of defensive masterclass. It was just some sort of just ridiculousness going on with the universe. I also saw it put, I think by the same person who wrote that comedic article on The Athletic, of like the narrative of Liverpool getting to 3 finals and not scoring, and the narrative of Thibaut Courtois having the man of the match performance cannot exist in the same sentences. You need to pick one.
Yeah.
And you pretty much have to pick the one that Courtois was man of the match and he saved Real Madrid. Like there was another stat that Mo Salah had more shots on target than like 6 of the past finalists. He had it by himself.
Yeah.
And it just, it's baffling that we could not score other than just, I don't know, destiny.
Right. Which is what it felt like, some sort of sick, twisted destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Courtois was great. He was the Thibaut Courtois that you saw, glimpses and glimmers of what he should be and should be turning into, like when he was in the Premier League. Before, he kind of just fell out of favor and kind of fell out of form. That's not the Thibaut Courtois that you expect to see, but it's pretty clear he came in extra motivated and he had a great performance. I mean, just the sheer amount of moments in which we had chances, we had great opportunities. And yeah, our finishing was bad. Our finishing, just was not what we had gotten used to seeing as of late. This was the finishing that we would have seen, 2-3 seasons ago, where we had so many matches that were like, how in the world we got like 1 goal, but we had, like 30 shots on goal. We're like, what happened? It was reminiscent of that, of like a 3 years ago. But it was, but the one, at the same time, it was, if he had not been as on, we still would have gotten 2 or 3 goals, even with our finishing being as just kind of just reckless and aimless as it seemed to be this time around. If he was not on, it'd be some goals. If we shot a little bit better, but he was still on, we would have had some goals. It was just terrible combination of both of those things. Where like, we were just a little bit off, but we weren't that off, we weren't off enough to not score at all. But then he was on. And if he wasn't on, it's just a terrible combination. And I hate it. I hate it. But what do you feel like? Do you feel like there was anything that Real did that was working well? I mean, you mentioned before, of course, that their main offensive attack was get the ball up to, Vicinius because he's super fast. That let him send it in. That was on display, but it doesn't necessarily mean, outside of that one time that they ended up getting a goal, it wasn't that effective. Was there anything, though, in Real that you saw that was working?
They were just getting in our way. They were hunkering down. They were playing, I won't necessarily even say like solid defense, because there were 8 people back. Like, they just condensed the field into 35 yards from their goal, and there ultimately just wasn't any space. And you could see it time and time again where we'd beat one person and another person would be in the way, and we weren't getting those dynamic runs into the box that had kind of characterized us when we scored 5 and 6 at the beginning of the season, just because the players were exhausted. And you could see that, like, they were doing their utmost, but there were just those little extra things that we would have done, or that players would have been in that position, and we just didn't quite do them. And you don't want to say that that's a bad thing. Like, we still created so many chances. We still had shots. We still got around it enough times. We just couldn't put all of the pieces together. And I know we all said it to each other. It's like, the worst part about the result is that you can't look at anything and say we did that wrong.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything wrong. We weren't the worst team. We didn't screw up. Like, the goal that they scored, it was the one time that they didn't attack through Vinicius on that side. And I mean, you can ask Valverde, and I don't think he'd be able to tell you if that was a shot or a cross. It just worked out the way that it did. And it just was like, well, that's Real Madrid. and we had our chances to do what we usually do, but Courtois was in the way. So
Yeah.
it's super disappointing, and it just sucks. But you can't. There's nothing about the team. There's nothing about the performance that I look back on and really regret.
No, you can't, because they're, like we said, that we didn't do anything wrong or do anything poorly. It just it's one of those sad, well, not sad realities. It's one of those harsh realities, but that's how sports work sometimes, where sometimes you can do just about everything right and you still don't win. And it just sucks, but that's just kind of, it happens sometimes.
I think sorry to cut you off, but I think the one miss that I would say is that Divock Origi was injured. Yeah. That match had Divock Origi written all over it the way they were playing, and it kind of seems like he is our guy that when we're up against that type of team, he just comes in and creates chaos and does what Origi does and baffles everyone that he sees, but we score. Yeah. And him being injured did not give us that kind of wild card, and we could have used him because we have 5 subs in this competition. Yeah. And that, I guess if there was a regret, it would be that he was not fit and couldn't get the send off that he deserved for actually playing the last 2 games of the respective competitions. Yeah. But in terms of like personnel on the bench, we brought on everybody we should have brought on. He would have been the one additional substitute that would have really shaken things up.
Yeah, fully agreed. It would have been good to see maybe an opportunity where he and Jota both get a little bit more of a run, because Jota of course came in, but it's difficult. It was difficult to find somebody to replace, because truth be told, our forwards were doing so well. Mm-hmm. Luis Diaz was the guy that we were running through for the entire first half. Every attack we had went through him and was effective. So it's hard to say that, but you're absolutely right. Like, if we had just a little bit more time, maybe, and if we had obviously the availability of Divock to mix things up a bit more, to throw in something different, a different look, and try to break through, that would have been great. But yeah, it's hard to criticize anything that we did. It just was one of those harsh days in which it just was not going to work out. And that's a bummer. But at the same time, that's where, like, I always come back to, and this is kind of the overall theme of what we've talked a lot about, especially towards the end of this season, as we've had the weird quasi quadruple chase, but like the Premier League also was never necessarily quite like that whole weirdness. But like, just measuring success based off of trophies is a terrible way to measure success. Mm-hmm. Because you have so many situations like this particular match, where the better team doesn't lift the trophy, So that's why you can't ever just like measure success solely off of that. You have to be able to look at the grand scheme of things and say this, this was still a successful campaign. Obviously, be foolish to believe that second place in the league, second place in the Champions League, and 2 domestic trophies was ever a bad season.
Yeah.
We could be very frustrated that we were not able to defeat Real, but there was also, you got to also think that the situation going on with the delay of the game, the situation outside, all of that had to play an effect of just throwing everyone off, as well. So you have all that going on. But does losing the Champions League final affect your assessment of the season at all, Alex? We talked a little bit in our last episode when it was you, me, and Will, and how we kind of rate the season and how it's been a phenomenal season regardless of how that match ends up. But obviously that match is going to affect things a little bit. Does it affect your overall assessment of, like, scale of 1 to 10, how you rate the season?
I think I gave a 9.5 last time, saying that if we won the Champions League, it'd be a 10. And if we somehow managed to win the league and the Champions League, it would have been like a 50. I think maybe I'm like a 9.4. Now, like, it sucks that we didn't win the Champions League, but this team still did something incredibly special and put in so many performances. And it has that distinction of being a team that played every match without replays that it possibly could have played. Like, not many other teams get to do that, and it just shows how good we are. I mean, there's a special atmosphere around the club now, and I know there's some obviously other fans were like, "Why are they having a parade?" But they're just. I mean, we get to have a parade. We won 2 cups. We get to celebrate our wins, and we didn't get to celebrate like this when we won the league. And also, it's something special about this club that we can use that as a way to forget about the disappointment of what happened in Paris. And you could even, maybe I'm naive, I chose to believe what the players were saying. Like, we thought that after how the game turned out, it was just going to suck. Like, this was super disappointing. We maybe weren't feeling it. It just didn't seem right. But it ended up being some of the best days of their lives. Like, they just had that special connection with the fan base. And I don't think many other clubs have that. And so of course, this is a successful season. This is one of my favorite seasons of all time. Just watching how we played, how we gave it everything to the end. And no other team in the way that how good we are is having to compete with the landscape that we've had to compete with before. Like, we're doing it the normal way, and we're up against people who are not doing it the normal way. We're still giving them a run for their money.
Yeah, no question. No, I 100% agree with your assessment, especially the fact that, I think it was huge. I think it was important that we did celebrate the victories, that we did go ahead and have that parade to celebrate the domestic cup titles. Because, I know those aren't like the most as prestigious as they might have been, 20 years ago or beyond that, but they still mean something. And it's still a level of success that other teams in the Premier League would celebrate if they had won. And if they, it's only when they don't win that they like downplay it a huge amount. Everyone wants to be able to enjoy those things, to enjoy the victories. We have victories to celebrate. And so we have to celebrate that. And I think that's not just a sporting thing. That's also just in everyday life. It's better for your mental health if you actually do celebrate the victories in your life, and don't just focus on the defeats. And
I mean, the fans needed it after Paris, how that whole treatment went down, and the women's team deserved it too. They won the league. Like, they deserve to have a parade to celebrate that. Like, there's plenty to celebrate around the club, and no one should fault the club for celebrating it or the fans for enjoying it.
I've said it before, and I was thinking about this earlier, but, in all my years of sports fandom, Liverpool is definitely the only team I've ever supported that were not like an underdog team. But now and so there's always a part of me that's like, I just don't, it doesn't feel quite natural because I always like an underdog. But now I realize that we may not be like your traditional underdogs, but everyone else hates us.
Yeah.
And so many other fans will root against us or root for whoever we're going against just because they hate us. And I realize, hey, you know what? That's a pretty unique thing too. Yeah, people are going to complain that we had or make a fuss about us having a parade. We deserve to celebrate our victories. You're just mad that we have something to celebrate and you don't.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. They hate us because they ain't us.
They hate us because they ain't us. That's how it is. That's how it always will be. All right. Well, I feel like we've talked a lot in the last few episodes about our assessments of this season as in general, and we talked a lot more in detail about what has made it such a good year and a memorable year and a season that we will as fans hold on to and talk about for many, many more years. So I want to go ahead and move into this break down this end of the season, keep or sell or loan game that we like to play here between the two of us here, and just kind of jump into it and talk about it. And before we really get into the actual like breakdown and game part of it, or I call it a game, it's really not like a competition. It's just more so, it's more of a game than it is a serious discussion, I guess. But before that, obviously, there are two players that you've already mentioned one, and the news is broken, of course, about Sadio Mane's desire to go ahead and leave. Let's go ahead, and obviously, Divock Origi and Sadio Mane are kind of on the quote unquote sell list. But I want to go ahead and talk about them first because as Divock has already agreed to move on, and as it seems like Sadio is going to go ahead and put in like a transfer request so that we can try to make some money off the transfer this year as opposed to just a contract running out. If that is the case, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the contributions of Divock Origi and Sadio Mane over their Liverpool careers. You've already mentioned a bit about how Divock has really embraced and succeeded in that super sub change of pace role and all that. But Sadio Mane, of course, has been a mainstay since he showed up. You bought his kit as soon as this announcement was made. Alex, just tell me a little bit about those two guys, their contributions that they've made and what they mean to this club.
I mean, they're Liverpool legends, plain and simple. I mean, for similar reasons, also different reasons in a sense. Like they're weird embodiments of the transformation of the club. Sadio, I mean, was a hit from day one, from moment one, from half one.
Yep.
When he started playing, like I'll never forget his first match against Arsenal. He scored that goal, then jumped on Klopp's shoulders. Like it was just such a fun time. Like that was when you as a fan and everyone as a fan was like, there's something happening here. Like this is just, it's something truly special to watch. And he's been there and he's scored big goals and he's helped us out. We wouldn't have won the league without him. We wouldn't have won the Champions League without him. He scores massive goals. He's played different roles for us. He's always been there. He's rarely ever been hurt, which is considering the past few years for the club is insane to say that he's rarely ever been hurt. And he's turned into one of the best players in the world. And there's no argument against that. Like he wins everything. He's won AFCON. He's scoring. He's assisting. He's always involved. I know that we've always said like when he plays really bad, he's really, really bad, but that also highlights how good he is normally and how good he's able to be on a consistent basis. So it sucks that he's leaving, and I really hope that something can be done to keep him because he's just part of such a special time and a special group for the club. Origi, not necessarily the first name on the team sheet, but the scorer of iconic goals. He's always there. He's always just lurking around, ready to shake things up. He's there when we need him. We send him on. There's been times throughout his career at the club where we're like, why is he still here? What's he doing? We've seen him. But then you hear Klopp say stuff like he's the best finisher at the club. And that's full stop. Like, and we have Mo Salah and Sadio Mane on the team. And he's just been something like a cult hero, the true embodiment of a cult hero. And another player that we wouldn't have achieved what we've achieved without. He's scored goals that have, like, per capita, the level of celebration that has happened with his goals is probably higher than any other player on the team. And he's earned this move to Milan, and I think he's going to get a lot of playing time there. And he's going to a league champion because he's that caliber of player. Yep. Even when and he's never complained. He's never made a deal about being backup. He knew his role. He understood his role. He was there. He did what he needed to do. And is a very popular figure within the club. And it's just a shame that he didn't get to sign off with playing, because he was with him in both of those games. Who knows what would have happened?
I know. Exactly. If I have to talk about, like one characteristic that would summarize both of these guys, Divock Origi and Sadio Mane, is that they're just winners. They just are. You could talk about the skill level, and obviously, especially with a player like Sadio Mane, the skill level off the charts. You can talk, on a negative side, you can talk about how Divock Origi has not necessarily become maybe like the next big Belgian star, like he was kind of thought he was going to be when that move actually occurred when he came to Liverpool. Gosh, what was that? 6 years ago? I feel like
longer than that. I think
7 years ago.
It was like around the 2014 World Cup because he was there.
It was.
Yeah,
it was. That's right.
Like a 19-year-old kid or something.
That's right. I was putting it a little later, but I actually distinctly remember. Yeah. So you're talking about 8 years, when he was up and coming next Belgian star. And maybe he hadn't really developed into that, but he was a guy, exactly what you're saying. He understood his role, and he knew in the clutch moments is when he had to step up. And there's just guys that have it in them to just make victories happen. And these are two guys that have that. They're just serial winners. And you just can't say enough about how important that is to a team and how important that is to just kind of their legacy as well. So, yeah, technically speaking, we don't quite know what the future actually holds for Sadio Mane, but it seems as though, a deal may be brokered this summer or this transfer window, I mean. And if that is the case, obviously we'll miss him tremendously, but we thank him so much for his service. And Divock already signed that deal to go to Milan. Great situation for him. Can't be more happy for him than to have him walk into a good situation for the next stage of his career. And obviously we wish him the best in their next stages of the career. And also we wish you would stay, Sadio.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll jump into the actual keep or sell section now. We go by each position group. We'll start with the goalkeepers. And obviously there's one name on this goalkeeper list that really stands out, that it kind of raises eyebrows of like, oh man, they're on the team, they're on the roster, all that. That's, of course, obviously Marcelo Pitaluga. No, that's Loris Karius, who we always forget is still technically on the team. So Karius is there. I think we can both agree. Shocking, and surely someone will give us a little bit of money for him, right?
No, his contract is up at the end of this month, so we don't get anything. And I again wish him well. He kind of seems like he's on the road that Tim Visa was on to become a WWE star. He's freaking jacked now.
He's massive.
So whatever comes next for him, he's going to do great. Honestly, he could just be a male model and be fine.
He'll be crushing it.
Crushing the heads of the people taking his photos.
Right. Are there any changes you would make to this goalkeeper room here that we have? Obviously, it's the most slender position group in terms of actual numbers on here. But are there any changes you would maybe make?
I think the one thing that seems to come up is that Adrian is potentially looking to go to a club where he can play more.
Yeah.
That's fine. I will say he seems really, really popular with the players. He seems like a really fun dude. All the goalkeepers seem crazy except for Kavit Kelleher. You kind of saw him kind of low key in the parade, but I know we all talked about it. Like once Allison puts that scarf on his head, things are about to go down. Like party rock anthems coming on, and he's going off. But Adrian, all the players seem to really like him, and if he wants to stay around, that'd be fine. Please don't play, but stick around and be everybody's friend. That's totally fine. But I couldn't begrudge him for looking for first team action elsewhere, because he's definitely like third choice keeper at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's obviously no debate as to Kevin being the second dude. He's proven himself, and he's still. What is he? 23? Yeah, 23. So he's still got room to really grow in his skill set, because we know that goalkeepers tend to keep developing and for years and years. So there's obviously, but you can't say enough about the value of having a veteran presence like Adrian in there. So yeah, if he wanted to stay, it'd be great to stay. But I think he probably wants to go somewhere and play again. I think someone who is used to being a starter, he wants to go back and get regular playing time, even at a smaller level. I think it's, but as you're in your mid 30s, your career, you've only got a few years left in the career. Hey, might as well go out playing. So I can't blame him, and I think it'd be good for him, and I hope that I just want the best for him, honestly, and. Then we can finally move into that Allison, Kavim, and then and Marcelo as the third string.
Yeah.
The way it should be. Have a random 18, 19-year-old keeper just hanging out as a third string.
One of our 58 Polish youth internationals lurking in the wings.
I felt like there's even that is it. We just have those 5 keepers listed. I felt like might be another. No, there is Harvey Davies.
He was in the match day squad for some cup match.
Yep.
Sell him.
He's
He
there.
sucks.
Yeah, he's at 18. He's washed up. Get him out of here. Get him out of here. All right, let's look at defenders then. Obviously, a few names stand out as, like we would never, ever, ever consider getting rid of Virgil. Ever. Andy and Trent, clear-cut, obvious starting fullbacks that we hope continue to play. I always forget that Andy's only 28 as well. Really seemed like he was hitting his 30s, but he's not. But there's a handful of other names here in the defense. You've got, Konate, you've got Joe Gomez, you got Konstas Tsimikas, you got Joel Matip, Reese Williams. You go through the dudes that have been out like on loan, like a Nat Phillips, Ben Davies, Sepp Vandenberg. I forgot about him too. Nico Williams. But anyway, you look at the defenders here. What do you do, though? Let's focus up on some of those guys that see regular playing time, like Konate, Gomez, Matip. Any of those guys you feel like we could maybe move along, maybe move them into other stages of their careers? Any of those names you think, Alex, that you would maybe move from, or do you just try to move maybe some of the other guys, the fringe guys?
No, keep all the main guys. Anybody who's played for us this season in defense, pretty much keep them. I don't even necessarily want to sell the fringe guys, but if you get a good offer, you take it. Again, they'd be players that you can't really hold against them, that they'd want to go play somewhere else or to get more playing time. Like Nico Williams did really well with Fulham on loan. Could obviously go back there because Fulham tend to get promoted and buy everyone. So would totally make sense. I mean, they could buy Nat Phillips too, since Fulham just buy everybody, but he helped Bournemouth get promoted too. I mean, they've put themselves in good positions to earn moves, and they'd probably play more elsewhere, but I wouldn't necessarily hate to keep them around because they get it. They've been around the club before. I mean, again, we wouldn't be where we are now without Nat Phillips last year. But and then like Reese Williams, another loan would probably help him out. But I mean, he can stay and practice with the team. Like that's probably helping him just as much. So nobody that I'd really like have a hankering to sell, but I'm guessing we'll probably get some good offers for Nat Phillips and Nico Williams for sure. Ben Davies doesn't exist, so I don't really know where you sent him. And Sepp Vandenberg apparently did pretty well on loan at Preston, so I could see him getting loaned again. So I don't think he'd be in and around the first team really, but it's nice to hear that he's coming along development-wise.
I get the feeling that we're stashing some of these guys because we feel like they can be rotational center backs for us. And so there's because surely there has to be a reason we went and got Ben Davies, right? Like there has to be a reason that he was even brought in at all, other than just to have another name on the roster. Surely they were like, yeah, there's something about him we like, and maybe we'll need it, surely. But that's just a head scratching move that he showed up and has never once featured.
Played one half of a preseason game.
Yeah. So weird. But that's what I definitely feel like you get guys like Vandenberg. I feel like we felt very comfortable stashing him. Because did we get him when he was 18? 17,
he was 17, yeah.
Yeah. So we got it when he was very young. I think we're just comfortable with just stashing him and waiting for him to get a little bit more experience and then trying to work him into rotation and seeing what happens first. I really feel like, and I could be way off base on this, but I feel like with the defenders, with the center backs in particular, that's a position group where we probably wouldn't sell them blindly unless there just is a good offer. We probably would at least try to see what looked like or how they performed in some sort of rotation before making a decision. I just think that it's a group where, I mean, you never see us really having a deep rotation, even when we're very healthy. It really is Virgil, Joel, and like Konate, maybe Gomez, and that but it really is like three people. Like you can count on Virgil, Joel, and Ibra being like the main three dudes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about that. Nat Phillips, I'd love to keep him just because we know how good he is in the air. Like he's a specialist. He's a specialist at it. And he's comfortable with it. I do wonder, there's a part of me that does wonder, if we go ahead and since we have that Virgil, Joel, Ibra main three, if Joe Gomez gets pushed out and we try to make a little money off of that, off of him being healthy, finally being productive. I like him. I've always liked him as a player. And I think he's grown more comfortable in the last couple of seasons. He's not as error prone as he was when he was in his early 20s. But at the same time, I feel like that's a guy that we could probably see a move for him, and that would make the most sense to me. I'm talking myself a little bit into saying that moving Joe Gomez makes more sense than moving Nat Phillips.
Yeah.
Which is so weird, but I'm talking myself into it a little bit.
See, I think Gomez is our backup right back now. So I think that will make Nico Williams be more appealing to other teams to submit offers for.
That's a good point. And Gomez has looked a little bit more comfortable at right back, which I kind of hate to say because I've fought against him ever playing there for so long. I do think that I don't see Nico Williams in a Liverpool jersey anymore. I think he's done. And I think that's good for him. I think it's good for him that he did well. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it's 100% Fulham's just going to go ahead and snag him. We're taking their guys. They take ours,
Yeah.
But that's where I feel like it'd be hard pressed to see like Nat Phillips or Reece Williams, going anywhere unless it's just another loan, and Vanderberg going anywhere unless it's just another loan. Also makes me wonder, like if in the next couple of years or something, we might actually see Billy show up, Billy Comatillo,
Billy the Kid,
Billy the Kid. Curious about him, and I'm just looking again. We have so many teens at the center back position. Owen Beck, James Norris, Jarrell Kwanzaa, Connor Bradley. Have to give a shout out to Connor Bradley.
Yeah.
Billy the Kid. So there's youth presence there, which is pretty exciting. Makes me curious about that. But yeah, I don't see too many moves here, but I think Nico Williams for sure. And I could see, since you pointed out Joe Gomez really needing to be the second choice right back. Yeah, he's staying. So maybe Nat.
And we just signed that Scottish right back kid. What's his name? Something Doan. Oh no, we signed Doan. I think he plays midfield. We're also interested in Calvin Ramsey.
Okay,
Scottish right back, so he could be another option if we do get that deal over the line. But again, he'd be young, up and coming, done it in the Scottish League, but not necessarily done it in for the one of the best teams in the world.
Yeah, right. All right. Let's go ahead. Let's move into the midfield. Obviously, a section of players that, crucial. Like every single midfielder we have plays and plays often and plays a lot. You got Fabinho, you got Thiago. It's fun being in a position now in which it's pretty obvious why it is that we push to get Thiago in, and why that argument, quote unquote argument, that Thiago throws off how we play when he first arrived was so stupid. But let me see.
Ben Doak is the guy's name, not Doan. Ben Doak.
Okay.
He's a winger.
Thank you. All right. I was going to get really mad if you didn't get that right because I definitely know about him.
He's a wee lad, so we probably won't see him in a while.
Yeah, speaking of wee lads, we do have some youngsters like Elijah Dixon-Bonner, Isaac Mabaya, Tyler Morton, who I believe that the coaches are very, very high on his potential. Mokamu Fromdorf as well in the midfield. All guys that I feel like, too early to make any decisions on there. Elijah Dixon-Bonner, though, is in his 20s.
I feel like he'll end up leaving at some point. I don't really see a path to the first team for him, but again, he seems like it's working to have him around. He seemed to have fun at the parade, so we'd be open to have offers for him. He's just probably going to play for the U23s for a while. I think all those will probably play for the U23s for a while. The only two will probably look at loaning out, I feel like, are Tyler Morton and probably Leighton Clarkson again. Probably send them to Blackburn just because that's what we do with our young center mids. It seems to work out pretty well for them, but those two seem to be the ones that we really have potential. Like we think they have potential.
I could easily see Dixon-Bonner turning into the next Shea Ojo.
Yeah.
Who's just like still technically here, but on loan always. Yeah. See him doing that. I want to ask you about some of the. All right. So the obvious guys that like are no question Fab, Thiago, Hendo, Curtis Jones, for being a 21-year-old just stepping in. I feel like it's kind of a no question that Curtis Jones is someone we want to keep around for a while because he's just good and he's just now getting here. But you've got like a veteran like James Milner, you've got Ox, you got Naby. I want to ask your opinion kind of on those guys. Well, if there's what do we do there? What do we do with those guys there? Is there anyone that you're like, hey, we could probably move on, or what do you think?
I think we try to give Milner another year deal. It's kind of all just depends on if he wants to go somewhere and play more.
Yeah.
But he would hate to see him go. He's been such an influence for the team, and he's just grown so much. And I know we say it over and over again how rare it is for someone of his age and profile to develop as a player at that stage in their career, but he really has. And it would just be a shame to see him go. Naby, it was great to see him not really be injured all the time this season.
Yeah.
And you really saw why we brought him in, what he offers to the team, the different look he gives to the midfield. I think he's earned his place here, and he's approaching the end of his deal, and I kind of think we'll offer him a new one. The club seem keen to keep him around, but I also know that PSG might submit some stupid offer, and that might be hard to turn down, but I'd like to keep him. I'd also like to keep Ox just for he's great with the team. He's a great presence to have around. I do think he'll go. I think he sees the writing on the wall that he's not really in the plans anymore and will probably go somewhere else. And he deserves to be playing. He's a great player on his day. It sucks to see him go, but it probably the best for him to go somewhere else. And I feel like we will get offers for him, and we'll get what we deserve for him, and he'll get what he deserves to play somewhere else.
Yeah, fully agreed. I think that Ox, I think I think it's pretty clear with like how little he really was playing towards the end of this season. That I think it's pretty clear that like you said, the writing on the wall. He probably is not going to feature much, especially if we are going to be using Harvey and Carvalho kind of in more midfield roles.
Yeah.
Which it kind of looks like that might be the plan with the two of them is we'll take them off the wing a little bit more. Obviously that's all speculation, but yeah, if that's the case, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's right and fair for Ox to go somewhere where he's going to play more. I think that keeping James Milner until he wants to retire from the sport should be a priority for us.
Yeah.
More so for what he brings off the pitch than on it, but also what he still brings on it. Like he's still contributing well. But he is like the same thing I said about Adrian, you can't discount how valuable a veteran leader like that is, and the fact that you've already got a great team captain in Jordan Henderson, to have just like another great, like second captain basically in James Milner, like that's amazing. I would want to keep him for sure. Naby is the question mark for me, because what it is for me is is that I want, again, going back to what we want to do with like Harvey, what we want to do, especially, in another year or so, maybe with Tyler Morton, with Carvalho as well. Like, depending on what we want to do with those guys, if we go ahead and maybe try to facilitate a deal so that we can get something for Naby that we can then turn back into, another true winger to back up Mo or something like that, or something like that. So I feel like I don't want to. There's very few players on this team that I would look at and just be like, yes, I would want to sell them. This team is amazing and I want to keep them together. Naby's a guy that I could see the benefit of getting something in return for. Not that I would want it to happen, but I could see the benefit of it. And he might be the only one that has that for me in the midfield. Because Ox, I think it's better for both parties to maybe move on. And again, love him, thankful for his contribution. But I think you see Harvey Elliott really take over this upcoming year.
And with Ox, like, he's the one player who didn't really play, that when he didn't play and they showed him on the bench, you could see the pain in his face.
Yeah.
And that just hurt.
Yeah. Fully agreed. All right, so let's hit the forwards now. Obviously, we've mentioned Divock Origi. Thank you for your service, sir. Good luck moving forward. We mentioned the now 30-year-old Sadio Mane, who, by all accounts, it looks like that sell is probably on the horizon. We'll see. But how about everyone else? I mean, we do have the now 30-year-old Roberto Firmino in the mix. Mohamed Salah has already said that he wants to be here next year. So that's kind of like no question. It's just like fingers crossed we can work out a deal to keep him here long term after that. But you've got like Bobby, who's now 30 and not really a consistent starter. You've got Taki, who like we love, but has never really quite broken into the rotation fully. You've got Shea Yoja. You've got a youngster like Cade Gordon. You've got a guy like Diego Jota, who obviously we love and is a big time contributor now, and should stay in that rotation. But like, you look at all these guys, and of course you got the newcomer Luis Diaz. You look at the forward position. What do you see? Do you see any potential other moves here, Alex?
I think it'd be good to loan Gordon, get him more consistent first team playing time at in an upper level league. And I think he's quality enough to earn that move and would play. So I don't think we sell him for sure, but I think a loan is probably on the horizon. I don't want him to go, but I think Taki will probably go. I think he knows like he's not really going to be a major player. He was a cup hero in both our cup runs. I mean, our leading scorer in both cups that we ended up winning. But I think the fact that he didn't play in either final kind of shows him what he needs to know about his role within the team, which sucks because I really like him as a player. And I know we've mentioned it before, but he joined the team at probably the hardest time to join a team. And I think that just kind of affected him the entire time he's been here, but he'll go somewhere else and he'll play a bunch. He's a good player.
Yeah.
It kind of like Ox can't hold it against him, and it would probably be best for both parties. I think the rest stay. I want the rest to stay, including Sadio, including Origi.
Yes.
But I think the one, I think we look at Bobby and we look at Hendo as well this upcoming season, and we start seeing their roles reducing. Bobby's already been reduced quite a bit because he's been injured most of the season. But I think even when he's fit, we see his role reduced a bit. I think we see Hendo's role reduced a bit as well, considering the youngsters that we're betting in and the next step of our play and just all the miles that he has on his legs and the speed of what we're trying to play. So I think they'll be valuable players and play a lot. It's just I think we take that next step and kind of the ending, the breaking up of the big three that we've had is probably an indication, a good time to start making those evolutions. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I'm also, I think Bobby taking a bit more reduced role also allows Jota to play in his position, because I know Will theorized that he was injured most of the second half of the season or just exhausted. But
yeah,
when Diaz joined, you couldn't really move him off the left. And Saturday was playing through the middle and playing well, which meant that Jota didn't get to play either of his positions and just was thrown in wherever. And it clearly did not reflect well on him. He did not really play that well in the latter half of the season, or the latter stage of the season. The half, I think overall was good, but he just looked kind of unsure of where he was supposed to be. So, I mean, he's so good at being a striker or so good at being a left winger as well that he will grow. And this also seems like an area where we're going to look to sign someone, especially if Sadio goes. Plus, we have Carvalho playing either mid or left wing, and Harvey playing either mid or right wing.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing about like Harvey and all that is the versatility. There are some versatile guys here. You know, I think, I can't find any area in which I disagree with you. I like what you pointed out about, going back to the midfield a bit, but talking about Hendo and his role moving forward. I think you're right. I think I also think I see us, changing his role a little bit more just to help him rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, he still, as like the captain and as a guy that has struggled with these like lingering injuries for years, still made 35 appearances this past season. Like, good grief.
Yeah.
That's insane. So yeah, I could definitely see that, not so much as a reflection of like him getting a little bit older and style changes, blah, 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 all that stuff you said that you've already said. I don't need to harp on again. That was great insight. But also just, I don't have anything to add. You summed it up. You did well. Thank you. But yeah, also just the fact that he's got so many miles, he needs some time where he doesn't have to be out there. I think that's huge. But yeah, with Bobby, I could see Bobby being the new Divock now, and taking that role of, you're the guy that we count on to come in the last 20, 25, 30 minutes of a match and just disrupt, instead of being full 90 minutes of disruption now. Yeah. Do that in a short amount of time. I definitely see that happening. I am curious to see about the youngsters we bring in and whether we're bouncing them back and forth between mid and the wings, or what is going on there. But yeah, this is a bit of a transition time for us, in terms of we have the luxury of working in new guys that will take up the mantle fully in a few years from some of these other guys, while still getting to enjoy the guys that are in the prime and playing at the level they're playing. It's a fun place to be in. And this is a team that I can't wait to keep watching. And I'm already looking forward to next season.
Which starts tomorrow.
Yep. I assume that the Premier League schedule should come out in the next couple of weeks, I think.
Yeah.
June 16th. So when June 16th rolls around, we'll have some more to talk about, I think, on the podcast, especially if we want to plan a podcast trip to the UK to go watch the team in person, because I think we owe it to ourselves to catch this squad at Anfield sometime next year. But we'll be touching on that soon. But I think on that note, we will wrap up this episode here and officially wrap up this season. A season that other people may try to bring us down about the way the season ended or something. They can't touch us. This was an incredible year, and we're going to cherish this season. Alex, any closing thoughts you want to add to this entire season?
It was super fun. It was super great. excited to see where we go from here. It seems like we have our sights set on some pretty big transfer targets as well. And I know that's always a super fun part of the summer transfer window.
Yep.
And I just hope nobody gets hurt because there's a bunch of games still going on because there's no rest for any of these players.
Ever. Yep. I'm with you on that. Hey, well, thank you for listening. We will touch base with you sporadically throughout the summer as news breaks, and we need to do quick reaction pods to any transfers that do happen. We'd like to, of course, do a little reaction pod to maybe season schedule release as well. We'll be in touch. Pay attention to our social medias, our Twitter in particular, YNTA podcast there, in which we'll keep you updated. We want to thank you for listening to this episode and thank you for being with us this season, which has been a bit of an odd season on the pod. More sporadic as we've all been a little bit extra busy in our regular lives. Thanks for putting up with us. Thanks for being patient with us. We've enjoyed it as always, bringing this dumb little podcast to you. And we're very thankful for all of you for listening along the way. Thanks for tuning in. This has been the final episode of the 2021-2022 season of You'll Never Talk Alone. Thank you to Alex Lebel. And we dedicate this, of course, in honor of our friend Andrew Ainsworth, as always. And a big shout out to Will Caves and our YNTA co-founder, Zach Osborne. Much love to all of them. Thank you. I'm your friend Joseph Craven, and we'll catch you next time. Woo!
We did it.
We did it.